I'm Carrie Staten. I'm the director of the Brownfields Assistance Center at West Virginia University. Super excited to welcome everyone here to Wheeling. I'm not a Wheeling native, but I am a Bethany graduate, so I feel like I've come home, and I'm very excited to be here. We have over 300 people registered this week, joining us yesterday for mobile workshops, here today for sessions, virtually from all over the place. We've got people joining us from 18 states, as far as California, and as close as just down the road. We've got students, economic development professionals, local government, state government, federal government, nonprofits, community volunteers, a great wealth of knowledge and experience in the room. So I hope that you'll all meet all 300 people today. We're also super excited to share that we have our first ever poster gallery this year, which is upstairs in the terrace room, that will be open all week with a special presentation from the poster presenters this afternoon before the reception. So definitely make sure to check that out. It's on your way to the West Ballrooms, which are upstairs. And we've got a lot of really great content for you the next 2 days, starting with a welcome from the mayor of Wheeling, Glenn Elliott. So Glenn Elliott is a Wheeling native. He has degrees from the University of Penn and Georgetown Law, after which he served as legislative assistant to Senator Byrd, and then eventually came home to Wheeling in 2012, or 2009, excuse me. In 2012, he turned his focus to revitalization and renovated a vacant building into downtown office space, so he's in the right place this morning. He was elected mayor in 2016 and re-elected in 2020, and in his administration has focused on economic development, improving quality of life, walkability, and so much more. And we're excited to welcome him here to tell us more about what's going on to Wheeling.
Well, good morning, everybody. Sorry if I can't see over there because of the screen. On behalf of Wheeling City Council and the administration here at the City of Wheeling, let me welcome you all to Wheeling for this great event. We're very pleased to have the West Virginia Brownfields Assistance Center and the West Virginia Main Street program for all that they do, to think of Wheeling to bring this conference here. We hope you enjoy your stay. I understand you guys had the opportunity yesterday to take some tours. As I was driving around, I did see a group of you, I think, out in front of the Knights Inn property. So that's one of our targeted properties right now. We've been working on a lot thanks to so many of you in this room. So we're glad you're all here in Wheeling. We hope you enjoy your time. We call ourselves a friendly city. If your experience is anything otherwise, check in with us, because that shouldn't be your experience. We are a city that really prides itself on welcoming people and hosting conferences like this. If you did drive through downtown yesterday, you probably saw a collection of cracked concrete, faded asphalt, gravel, and orange barricades that we call Main Street. And I apologize for that. That project is about 7 years in the making. It's consumed the entire time I've been in office, but we could not be more excited to see that project taking shape. It's the first time in about 40 years that all of our streets and sidewalks in downtown, including traffic signals and crosswalks, are going to be redone at the same time. So it's going to be an absolutely fabulous project. It's just taken a long time to get to here. And if you talk to local people, the frustration level is up to about here now with how long we've been waiting and now dealing with all the construction. But it's exciting. Just come back in about 18 months and it's going to look a lot different down there. So let me just give you a quick 2-minute version of how I came to be mayor, because it was never something, I can tell you it was never something growing up that I ever foresaw for myself. I'm currently in my 4th year of my 2nd and final term as mayor. When I graduated high school here in 1990, though, I was not unlike many of my peers that I did not see a future in Wheeling. Success, if you did not have a family business, if you didn't want to work in what was left of the steel mines then, or steel mills then, success was defined by leaving. And I left my class, a local high school here at Lindsley, 55 of us. There are today in Wheeling, I think 4 from that class still here. And I was gone for almost 20 years. So that was the model. We've been exporting students and young people for so many years in this city that was the model of success. And I never thought I'd come back. But I went on to college, went on to DC, went on to law school, and then after nearly a decade working at a big corporate law firm there, I sort of had that, what am I doing with my life moment? You know, it was that aha moment of what am I doing? What do I want out of life? And that sort of, I say midlife, but it was, I guess I was 38, so I guess that is a midlife crisis. That caused me to say, you know what? I don't know exactly what I want to do, but I know I don't want to keep doing this. So I quit my job. I moved back home. I budgeted about a year just to use Wheeling as a home base so I could travel a little bit, figure out what I was going to do. But it took me about a month of being here to decide that I'm never leaving. Once I left once, and it was great for the opportunity to do that. But when I came home, it just felt right. The connection that I had to the community in terms of the deep family lineage here, the connection between the schools and the families of all the people I grew up with. It just was too much. The sense of really the past, the present, and future as being part of some chain. When I lived in D.C., I never felt a part of really anything at sort of the local community level. And I quickly got engaged in that when I came back to Wheeling, and I made the decision to stay. But 2 or 3 years into that, I made another decision, which my friends at the time thought was just as crazy as me staying in Wheeling, and that was to buy a vacant 6-story building in the heart of downtown and say, this is going to be my home and my project for probably the rest of my life. I bought that building, and nothing in my life has been ordinary since. I still live there now with my wife and son. The first floor of the 6 has been renovated into office space, but there's a lot more work to be done, and I'll get to that in just a second. But it was because of that, and because I began to seeing, through that building, I began seeing where Wheeling is in this long chain of events, a connection between past, present, and future that I really got interested in local politics, decided to run for mayor. I somehow won. I'm still not sure what the voters were thinking, and they gave me a second chance at it too, and I'm going to be stepping away here next June. Very grateful for this opportunity because it has been the absolute honor of my life. So enough about me, but let's talk about Wheeling here a little bit. Like a lot of Rust Belt cities, we endured several decades of industrial decline and population loss, really spanning the latter half of the 20th century. By the year 2000, our population had fallen to roughly half its peak from the 1930s. Our downtown was left with a lot of vacant storefronts, a lot of dilapidated buildings, and as you probably noticed during your tours yesterday, a lot of vacant surface lots. But really over the past two decades, starting at the end of the 90s, city leaders began to respond to these challenges. They started rehabbing some old buildings, took some 19th century buildings and like Oric and brought 21st century jobs in. We redeveloped our historic waterfront. If you see our Heritage Port now, it's hard to believe there used to be a 6-story parking garage there that completely blocked downtown from the river. That was what was done in the 50s for reasons that make no sense. But the decision was made in the 90s to tear that garage down, and we have a beautiful waterfront there. We saved the historic Capitol Theater. Like, these are all things that happened before I took office, but they really kind of set the stage for where we are today. In my current role, I've worked with the City Council to build on those efforts. We really focused at diversifying the local economy a little bit and fostering quality of life improvements. Workers these days are pickier than ever about where they want to live. It's not just that a city needs jobs to be competitive. It has to foster the quality of life that they have. We have a lot of big city amenities here. For a city of 27,000, we have a symphony. We have 2 professional sports teams. We have this park, which really, as a city, as a municipal park, is really one of its kind across the nation. You won't find many city parks like this, and this is such a great asset to have for our community. We also have the proximity to I-70, to the river, and you can get to the Pittsburgh airport in about 55 minutes, where there are parts of Pittsburgh where you can't get to the airport in 55 minutes. So we've also focused a lot on our downtown, especially trying to get people living in some of these vacant buildings that were, as the demand for office space went down. We created a facade improvement program that's been incredibly popular. I see some city staff down here. They've helped work with that. Nancy Prager and her team have helped us We've administered all these facade grants for, we basically did, it's a matching grant up to $15,000 for people to invest in their own properties, and that has been incredibly successful. We modeled that on a program that was very successful in Greenville, South Carolina, and we've seen a lot of people, for the first time in decades, private property owners reinvesting in their properties. We've also seen incredible amounts of public investment. The streetscape project that I mentioned is a $32 or $33 million project, 7 years in the planning. We focused a lot also on parks and recreation. When I ran for mayor in 2016, one of my platforms was to basically restore our playgrounds. And a lot of folks in city government at the time didn't really see didn't appreciate the need for playgrounds. I was even called the swing set candidate by some folks, but it turned out the swing sets vote, because we've since now restored, I think, 24 of our 28 playgrounds with completely new equipment. The last 4 are queued up to be done before I leave office next year, and that really has made a difference. And thanks to some brownfield cleanups, we're actually bringing some new recreational assets in the well. I think you may have had a chance to see the Robrec site yesterday. That's going to be a future recreational facility on a brownfield site. We also have the Wheeling Gateway Park on Wheeling Island that is also a brownfield site. So there's a lot of emphasis on recreation that I think gives a city like Wheeling a chance to compete in this area where workers are ever more picky about where they want to live. So we've been able to leverage a lot of several EPA brownfield assessment grants, working with Bellamar here locally to really facilitate downtown revitalization and these other projects. They've helped us clear some blighted sites for future development, and of course, as I mentioned, those new park assets. But our goal here isn't really unique. We want to make Wheeling a desirable place to live. We want it to be a beacon to trained workers and professionals from around the country to come here and make this their home. I hope you'll notice when you're visiting here, just all that's going on, and I ask you just to look at, not at where we are at this particular moment, but kind of look over the horizon a little bit as all these different projects that are currently in motion, when they get completed, probably in the next 2 or 3 years, it's going to be a very transformed place. And I think people are starting to take notice. Just a couple months ago, Fortune magazine named us the 33rd best cities for families in the entire country. That's something we're proud of. We've gotten some other recognition as well. I think people are seeing Wheeling in a different sense here in the last couple of years, and that's exciting for the future. All right, so enough about me, enough about Wheeling. This is a conference on brownfields, so I think we should probably talk about that a little bit. And it's not an exaggeration to say that brownfields is one of the primary challenges we have had here in redeveloping properties and sites. It's very tempting when you're in public office to look at economic development in very black and white terms. You see the demand for something is here, you see the supply is here, and the free market should easily step in and fill those gaps. The problem is that the supply side of that equation tends to be a lot more complicated. Here in Wheeling, as in countless other cities, it seems that our prior generations developed a love affair with a certain material called asbestos, and they put it in everything. While we have a lot of Victorian architecture which predates the asbestos era, subsequent building owners sort of took it upon themselves to make sure that asbestos omission was corrected over the years. The building I own is a perfect example. It was built in 1891, Richardsonian Romanesque style, with a very ornate roof, decorated with Spanish tiles. For reasons that I've never been able to get an explanation on, in the 1950s, they took that roof off and replaced it with the roofing material of the future, which you can guess what it's made of. I'm actually planning to replace that roof this fall, and the good news is that roof lasted for 70 years, so it is good roofing material. The bad news is that as I look at the cost of this project, and I have my son's college fund there, the cost of abatement is going to take a chunk out of that, because it adds to the cost of doing everything. And so it's sometimes difficult for the free market just to make projects make economic sense when you add all the abatement and remediation efforts into a project. It's not just simply replacing what's there or filling what's there with something. You have to deal with all these other issues, and that's where you all come in this room. There's the same story can be told about every building in Wheeling, a lot of former industrial sites as well, with the result being that for local developers, the cost to fill that supply and meet that demand is often just exaggerated or sort of amplified by all these brownfield issues, and that has stifled development over the years. But we've been so very, very fortunate to work with so many of you in this room. I need to give a shout out to the team at Bellamar, Scott, Macy, and Natalie. You guys have been terrific. I saw the folks from Environmental Standards here, Lee and Lydia. Thank you for what you all have done. You worked through Bellamar, also contracted directly with the city for some great projects and great work. I think I saw Casey Corbini from the DEP here. She's been a great partner. And let's not forget the EPA itself. I don't know if the administrator's here yet or not, but I know he's going to be here at some point today. But we really thank the EPA and all these other entities for your commitment to the city of Wheeling, because a lot of the projects that are going on right now don't happen without you. If you look around downtown right now, especially through the main central business district, I can count about 30 different projects, some big, some small, some public, some private, that are taking place or either recently finished or actively taking place now or in the very late stages of being planned. And I can't think of a period in Wheeling history where that level of public and private investment has happened at the same time, at least not in modern history. We're seeing formerly vacant office buildings being converted into market rate apartments. We're seeing vacant lots being readied for new condominiums. We're seeing public investments in underground infrastructure, the streetscape project, new police and fire headquarters. The city is building a new downtown parking structure that's going to have some retail space as well. The eyesore of a former hotel is being ready for demolition, and the construction of a new visitor center. It's no exaggeration to accept that a lot of these projects don't happen without assistance in dealing with the brownfields, and that's where y'all come in. Let's look at perhaps the biggest project we have queued up right now. It's a great example of the role that you all play, and that's the planned construction of an $80 million regional cancer center here on what was the former OVMC campus. This project may never have happened without some help from you all, specifically an EPA assessment grant. About 4 years ago, the OVMC, a High Valley Medical Center, shut its doors. It had been flirting with bankruptcy for many years. As our population had waned over the years, it was clear our city could not support 2 major hospitals. So it was somewhat inevitable, but it was still a big blow to the community when that happened. And that left us with a massive 4-acre complex of 8 buildings, about 800,000 square feet of office space sitting vacant in the middle of our city, in the middle of our downtown. We made the decision, it was somewhat controversial at the time, to step in and take ownership of that property. The owners were happy to get rid of it, and we knew that, with them not being local, the ownership was a company from Alabama. With them not being local, we weren't convinced that they were going to, be as interested in redeveloping that site as we were. So we took ownership of it, and set about trying to find solutions. Of course, one was an easy fix. We found one of those buildings, the most recent of the buildings that had been built, is now serving as our shiny new, brand new police headquarters. I don't know if that was on your tour or not, but it was we did the ribbon cutting for that building back in July. It was the former Valley Professional Center of the OVMC campus converted into a brand new new police headquarters, which I'm willing to wager is without a doubt, the preeminent law enforcement facility in the state of West Virginia now. It's absolutely spectacular, 3-story state-of-the-art building. But the rest of the campus, it's safe to say, was in rough shape, a lot of deferred maintenance, not a lot of options for adaptive reuse. So what we did basically, working with Bellamar and an EPA assessment grant is, we commissioned a study of all the asbestos and other hazardous materials in those structures. We were able to market the buildings. We were able to find a partner in W Medicine that had an interest in building a regional cancer center here in the city of Wheeling, and we found a win-win. That project, the bad news is the buildings have to be demolished, but if you've been through them, they were really in rough condition. The good news is, on what was a 4-acre site full of empty buildings, we're going to have a brand new $80 million cancer center, built here in the next couple of years. The demolition is actually going to be starting on the buildings here at the end of this year, maybe by the fall here, and that's very, very exciting, because that was something, we were really handed a lemon, and to be able to see, I see that coming in the future, a cancer center that, is going to actually bring people to Wheeling. It's going to serve people here, but it's going to serve people from around a 60 or 70 mile radius of Wheeling. That's a big economic incentive, and that doesn't happen probably without some brownfield help as well. So again, I thank you all enough for that. Look, the list of projects, some of which you saw on your tour yesterday that we have, is lengthy. I could probably talk about each and every project for 10, 15 minutes. I know that's probably not in your best interest, but the projects are meaningful and impactful, and we really appreciate them. I just want to say that, because of the work that so many of you in this room do, we are seeing the reinvention of the city into something special. For the first time in my lifetime, more people in Wheeling are talking about the future of Wheeling than are sort of waxing nostalgic about the past. That's kind of been our crutch for so many years, is you go around town and everyone will say, well, Wheeling was, back in the day, it was something else. No city wants to ever be defined in the past tense. It's not a place you want to be. No one wants to move to a city that used to be something else. People want to live in a place with a bright future and that's going somewhere, and I really think we are going somewhere, in part with the help from you in this room. We're seeing private investment in real dollar terms probably at levels that haven't existed since the end of the 19th century. That really was Wheeling's first heyday. I see the next heyday as still coming, but I really think it's the private investment that's following all this public investment that is really going to make the difference. That's sort of what keeps me going in this job, is the idea that, when young kids are graduating high school, they don't face the same decisions I did. Stay here and struggle to figure out something to do, or leave and find success. I want kids to graduate high school here and see a future for themselves in Wheeling. I certainly, my own son, I want him to, when he graduates, to see a Wheeling that, he could be proud to make his home and find his path there as well. So, I could go on and on. I don't want to keep you guys anymore, but I thank you for what you do. I thank you for coming to Wheeling. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer some. I don't know if there's time for Q&A or not, but I'm happy to answer any questions. But I really just want to thank you for what you do, and keep up the great work.
Any questions? We do have time for one or two. Thank you so much, Mayor. Thanks for having us. All right. I want to take a minute to thank our the members of our committee who are our local hosts, as well as the rest of our committee, but our local hosts helped invite and get the mayor here today, and that is Natalie Hamilton with Bellamar and Betsy Sweeney with Wheeling Heritage. Also on our committee from the AWMA, which hosted the LRS training yesterday, Matt Ford and Lydia Work. From DEP, Casey Corbini and Aaron Britton. From Main Street, West Virginia, Jennifer Brennan and Mike Giolis. My fearless co-chair, George Carrico. And most importantly, our conference committee wrangler, Becca Phillips, who is the mastermind and made all of this stuff happen today. So thank you to all of our committee, and thank you to Becca and our staffs at both centers for getting everything ready for us today. Also want to thank all of our sponsors, including our technology sponsor, Raise International, which is sponsoring our Wi-Fi today in the room, and the online option and virtual option. So thank you to them. Thank you to our platinum sponsors, CEC and Environmental Standards, and all of our other sponsors, which we'll hear a little bit more about as we go throughout the next 2 days. But up next, we have for you, the Wheeling Feeling is continuing with our panel of partners from throughout Central Appalachia. The Central Appalachian Brownfields Innovation Network, or CABIN, is here with us this week. We're thrilled to have partners from all over the region, and I'm not gonna spoil their fun, but I will introduce Casey Corbini from West Virginia DEP, who will kick us off.
Good morning and welcome to Wheel of Fortune Brownfields Edition. I'm your host, Casey Corbini, filling in for Pat Sajak as he eases into retirement. Unfortunately, Vanna couldn't join us in person today. She's scheduled to headline a Close the Gender Wage Gap rally this afternoon. However, she will be joining us virtually, so that's great this morning. All right, and we're so excited to have you here today in our audience. It's going to be a great show with 5 Brownfield redevelopment professionals from 5 different states here to play Wheel of Fortune Brownfields Edition. But first, a message from our sponsor.
Got the message? So our sponsor for this event is Cabin, or the Central Appalachian Brownfields Innovation Network. This is a peer exchange group of regional brownfield redevelopment and environmental professionals who work with each other and with local communities to facilitate the redevelopment of brownfield sites and formerly mined lands. Member states include Kentucky, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, and of course, West Virginia. And they work together to overcome the common challenges encountered throughout Appalachia, which include beautiful but difficult terrain with very little flat land, domination and then abandonment by large industries, rural communities that are isolated and deprived of resources, economic stagnation, and population loss. But it's not all bad. You can see a representative from Cabin today. They're happy to provide free programmatic guidance and technical support as you navigate the often confusing and overwhelming brownfield redevelopment process. So, round of applause for our sponsor, Cabin, for all the work they do.
All right, thank you, Cabin, and welcome back to Wheel of Fortune. It's time for a toss-up round. For this round, we encourage audience participation. Feel free to shout it out when you've guessed that phrase. I heard it. Have you had a phase 1? Thank you, that was fast. All right. So let's go ahead and meet our contestants today. First, we have Karen Weber here. She's the Brownfields coordinator with the Office of Remediation Programs at Virginia DEQ. So, Karen, I understand, well, we all know that West Virginia Brownfields Assistance Center really loves their mascot, Bucky, the beaver. And I understand the state of Virginia also has an interest in Bucky. Would you like to explain?
Well, we do, but I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance to eat breakfast yet, so I know good food when I see it, so I brought myself some canned beaver and a fork. And so if I catch Bucky, I know what I'm doing with him, and I think I just dropped something. But you know what I like best is it's pretty minimally processed stuff, and thanks to Stantec for the portable fork and knife set from another conference. So I'm sorry, Bucky. Oh, it's really having a little trouble here. Oh, minimally processed. They just stuffed him in a can. But I'll tell you what, look out, Bucky. So.
Did not know we were headed there, or I would not have used that prompt. All right.
It's a little tough. You want a bite?
I'm good, thanks.
All right, moving on. Our next contestant is John Gross. Please compose yourself, John.
Give me a second here.
He is the environmental group manager with the land recycling program at the Pennsylvania DEP. John, I understand that you were previously a salesperson. How did you go from salesperson to the head of the Brownfields redevelopment program?
It's a really good question. I don't know is the best answer. Honestly, I was tired of being a salesperson, and I applied for a job as a risk assessor at DEP, and they decided I wasn't very good at that, so they moved me to a different department in Brownfields redevelopment because apparently I like to talk a little. So I kind of cut my teeth and figured out how to do it, and now I'm running the show. So it's actually really cool, and I get to come to really cool places like this and sit next to people like that and laugh a lot.
Well, we're glad you're here today, John, and every day we get together with you, it's a great time. All right, a familiar face, a contestant who's been here before, Erin Britton. She's the Brownfields Program Manager with the Office of Environmental Remediation at West Virginia DEP. Erin, I understand you usually hang out in the DEP headquarters lobby. Can you tell me more about that?
Yes, and I'm sorry, Casey, since you're my supervisor, I should have told you this before, that I hang out a lot in the lobby, not doing much, but yeah, so if anyone's ever gone to the DEP headquarters lobby, there's a TV or screen that constantly runs with our DEP Environment Matters program, and Mike Huff does our Environment Matters. He's our videographer there in the back in the blue shirt. Wave, Mike, hey. Yes, he deserves a round of applause. And I don't know how many videos I've done for him, but it's quite a few. And anytime I walk into the lobby, my face is always on the screen. And when I go through, the different offices in the building, they're like, oh, hey, I know you from the lobby. You're always on the screen. And I'm like, yes, that is correct. I'm always on the screen in the lobby. Thanks, Mike.
You're the lobby girl.
I am the lobby girl.
All right, next we have Roxanne Anderson. Roxanne is the Brownfields Coordinator at the Division of Environmental Response and Revitalization in the Ohio EPA. Roxanne, who has a fan club apparently, Roxanne, during COVID, everything really shut down, as we all know. I hear you got a little creative in how you did outreach during that time, and it has shaped your current program. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Yeah, as everyone knows, things became very difficult during COVID, and we were in the middle of a few projects, and we had planned community meetings with people in person to kind of do some thought process and building a project. And since we couldn't do that, we decided to try our hand at online surveys in small rural town in Ohio. So as you can imagine, that was very scary. But surprisingly, we had over 350 responses in a community of only about 4,000 people. So we found that it was much more effective, especially when getting the community and the business owners involved to distribute that information and getting information from the community, because it wasn't just a small subset of people with a lot more investment giving their opinions on what the community needed and how to move forward. So using that model, we have continued to use that moving forward to get feedback in addition to in-person, because that's really invaluable as far as brainstorming. But it's been a wonderful experience.
Great, thanks for sharing that with us today, Roxanne. And finally, our last contestant, Paula Middlebrook. She's an environmental consultant in the Division of Remediation at the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. Paula, I understand that you've spoken about Elvis and a mountain goat in the same presentation and at conferences. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I'm a believer of infotainment. So we like to bring some fun facts and maybe strange connections to Brownfields. And in this case, there was Brownfields in Tennessee that were connected to Elvis Presley, and another one with a mountain goat, and that's a teaser. I'll talk about that in a bit.
All right, thank you, Paula. Thank you for all of our contestants for being here today. Let's go ahead and get started and spin that wheel. We're going to have a quote today for our category. And Virginia, you're up first. Spin that wheel. $20,000. Karen, what would you do with $20,000?
$20,000 can actually go a pretty long way. We in Brownfields have already identified communities in our state that have brownfields but don't really have the capacity to kickstart anything. I would take that $20,000 and reach out to one of those communities and try to help them start a project, whether it's a community inventory or a site-specific abandoned schoolhouse building, and just try to get them some help. Some of these communities don't have someone who can write small grants or even manage a grant. because starting small is better than not starting at all.
That's great. So Karen, would you like to choose a letter?
I'll
Buy a
choose-
vow or solve the puzzle?
I'll choose the letter S.
All right. There are 6 S's.
What a surprise. What a surprise.
All right. Spin again, Karen. Yoshino cherry trees. That's a new one on the wheel.
It is. I love trees, and I would take those trees, I would plant them along my driveway, and I know that in about 10 years, maybe more, they would grow up and they'd be gorgeous, and those blooms, and when I pulled in my drive, it would just be, a wonderful experience. But I also know that you have to be patient, and I think that's something that happens in Brownfields too. The patience pays off, and eventually you see the beauty of what something can be.
All right. Well, Karen, would you like to choose a letter, buy a vow, or solve the puzzle?
I'm gonna choose another letter, N, please.
All right, let's see. Are there any N's? Yes, there are 2
I chose
N's.
the easy letters.
All right, spin again. A trip to Buchanan, Virginia.
Ooh, I've been there.
Are you excited to visit, Karen?
I'm excited to go back. It'd be great.
All right.
So,
Tell us why.
I can tell you about Buchanan. How convenient that there's already pictures available for me.
Don't ruin the magic,
great
Karen. You're the
setup.
first one to go.
I know. So, I'll just skip to the next one. There's the name of the town. So, there it is, the top map. It's this little bitty town in Virginia, and you can see it's along Route 11, but there's also Interstate 81 goes right by. It's been there for a very long time. This community still has life, it still has character, and I don't know if you recognize the bottom map, but that is not Buchanan, Virginia. I'm relying on people to have seen the movie Cars. Anyone seen the movie Cars? Thank you. So Radiator Springs, and you remember the little montage when they're doing the Our Town song. And Radiator Springs is this vibrant little town, and people drive through on Route 66, and they love it, and everybody's active. And then they get excited. They're building the interstate, and it's kind of cool. They put up signs. They say, "Welcome, interstate travelers." And slowly, people stop going through the town. They stop driving along Interstate 66, and things start to shut down, and the community starts to kind of dwindle, but there's still people there who love that community, and it's near and dear to their heart, and it has meaning to them. They want it to be something. They just don't know what their next something is going to be. And there's a little bit of that story in Buchanan when I go through there. Still has life, still has character, still has community members that love that town. They have great antique stores, they have outdoor opportunities, there's a lot to it. But people just whiz by on 81. They see the exit sign, but they can't see the town. So if we can get, a new version of Buchanan, I think we can draw in some interest. And this is a site, $20,000 community assistance grant. It was a cold call. This is my understanding. I wasn't here, but it was a cold call that said, "We can help you. We can help you start small, but just start." So what they did is they did an inventory, and that's all they did to start. What do we have so that we can start making decisions about what we need to do next? And that then opened up other opportunities. EPA came in, offered up a targeted brownfields assistance, and they did some phase 1 site assessments for these parcels that are located in red, starting small, just the phase 1. But then we know a little bit more about those sites. And that opened up other opportunities. So they were able to then ask for some money from our state Brownfields grant and start getting $50,000 grants to do some work, asbestos abatement, some environmental site assessment, sampling, phase 2 work. And there's more opportunities there. But it's not just Brownfields grant. They also were able to get one of the recreation grants from EPA.
And so they're doing some, because there's a good ecotourism opportunity here. I mentioned the James River's right there. They've got an outfitter. It's near the Appalachian Trail. They can get people to come in off the trail, maybe have a night of good sleep and get something to eat, head back to the trail. There's opportunities. And it's still to be continued. We're just in the beginning phases of this. There's lots of opportunities. Oh, look, cherry trees. How nice. So the other thing that they have is they have Harry Gleason. And Harry Gleason is their community development guy. Harry's not out there. He's not an extrovert. He's the guy that can make things happen behind the scenes. He loves to watch. He would plan this, get this going and stand in the back and watch it happen. He's quiet. He doesn't really need to be up here. But he gets things done. So Harry is a landscape architect by trade, and he used to work with Elizabeth Gilboy at the Community Design Assistance Center. He hand-planted all of these cherry trees in this town because he wanted to. So he's gone out, and over the time, these trees have grown up so big and beautiful, and now they have a countdown to the blooms. So if you get on their website, you can see the countdown, so you know when to drive through the town, well, you know when to get off of Interstate 81 and actually go Route 11 and pass through this town. And maybe then you'll stop for lunch, maybe you'll hit an antique store, maybe you'll hit the river, maybe you'll say, I really should come back to this place. And it's beautiful. And it's just the start. He knows that there's more that we can do, and there's more building that can be done. So lucky for them, they have Harry also, and these gorgeous trees. So that's Buchanan. You should go.
Sounds like an incredible trip, Karen.
You need this.
All right, well, let's move on, though. Would you like to choose a letter, buy a vow, or solve the puzzle?
I'll buy another letter. R?
Well, the R's are free. You can save your money.
R? It's not a vow.
I said they're free. You said you could buy a letter. Oh, they're free. They're free.
I was going to say.
All right, are there any R's? No, unfortunately. I'm sorry. All right, moving on. Pennsylvania. Let's spin that wheel. $20,000. Everyone's hitting that jackpot today.
Wow, that's crazy that we both hit that one. Isn't that
It
weird?
is.
Yeah.
I know. Good for us.
Well, Casey, that takes me to a story that this one time at the PA Brownfields conference that my tab provider said to me, hey, EPA is giving away $20,000 of free money. You going to apply for it? And I went, no, because I don't know what to do with it. And she said, well, you should just do it. And I said, all right. So we did. We actually came up with a plan to do these, what at the time were called small community grants, and now they're the TAG grants. The idea was we were going to do a brownfields inventory. We have a lot of historical industry and small town problems in Pennsylvania, as a lot of Appalachia does. So we decided to do that. One of the key things we decided to do in that process was to make sure that that small town that doesn't really have any capacity has a partner, a regional partner of some kind. So the idea would be that we would give this $20,000 to a partner, or not give it to them, but do something for this group that was created to help them figure out what it was. And we decided to do brownfield inventories. So the idea then was to do a selection process of how we did that, and we came up with, through an EJ process and a regional process with the city of Shamokin, which I'm giving away something from the end, but I'm going to start it there. So that's what I'm doing with my $20,000.
All right, great. Well, John, let's move on. Would you like to choose a letter, buy a vow, or solve the puzzle?
I would like to I would like to select a P, please, for Pennsylvania.
A P? Is there a P? One P.
Ah, see, I'm lucky.
All right, let's spin again, John. $1.3 million. We thought 20,000 was good.
How in the... Oh, well, let me tell you how. So as part of this process, when we picked Shamokin, Shamokin was already kind of started, the seed was already planted there a little bit. They had hired through a DCED, which is our Department of Community and Economic Development through the state, they had hired a champion, I'm going to call her, because there's no other word for Betsy Kramer. She was hired to kind of be the Shamokin person. And with that, we had kind of had a relationship with her. So we offered the $20,000 to them to help them out and get this whole thing started. So in that process of her getting that $20,000, well, us giving the Brownfields inventory to them for the $20,000, if you ever get a chance to go see Betsy Kramer speak, she is with a group called CEDACOG. We have councils of government in Pennsylvania, regional councils of government, and it's the Susquehanna Valley kind of central state COG. And Betsy doesn't have any experience in Brownfields. We did a presentation in Detroit together, and her opening statement was, "I have no business talking to any of you," because she was a planner. She had a business as a planner, and not a city planner. She organized your closet. But she is dynamic and just knew what she needed to do in that situation. So over the course of 2019 was the first TAG grant that we did with Shamokin. In 2021, she acquired a community-wide assessment grant for Shamokin basically for the city of Shamokin for $300,000. She turned around last year, got a $1 million RLF grant to do cleanups in Shamokin. And then is also, and what I probably should have done was make this, instead of 1.3 million, make it 5.8 million, because she's trying for a Swiffer grant, which is the solid waste infrastructure for recycling grants, and she's got a $500,000 job training grant either in the process this year or starting to do that next year. So if I could make a suggestion to anybody in a small town that is looking to do anything with Brownfields, make sure, if you do not have the capacity to have a grant, make sure you have a partner that will champion you, and make sure that you are that key component. I can't emphasize enough how much Betsy has done for Shamokin.
Wow. All right. Well, John, would you like to choose a letter?
I would like the letter.
Vowel, or solve the puzzle?
I'm going to take a letter. I want a letter B for Brownfields.
Is there a B?
Yes.
1B.
I get one more chance to talk.
One more spin here, John. A trip to Shamokin, Pennsylvania.
Oh, great. I'm sure. Yeah, I don't know why anyone in their right mind would want to go to Shamokin right now. Just give you a little kind of, so on the left there you can see a picture of Shamokin, and that picture is actually taken, it's an aerial photo, and you think that might have been taken by a drone. It's actually not. It's actually taken from the largest coal pile in the world. Those of you from West Virginia probably know what that is, but those that don't, it's actually the coal waste. So Shamokin was an old coal town. It was discovered in Shamokin Creek in the early 1900s. They mined a lot of coal out of Shamokin. It was a busy hub. At its height, there were 28,000 people living there, and you can see that's not a very big town. So they were packed in. It's kind of in a valley. It's built on two sides of a hill. There's a river going through the middle. The river is orange from acid mine drainage. It's actually pretty weird sight to see. But just a few kind of weird facts about Shamokin in the past, and I'm going to kind of use the same message that the mayor told us, that nobody really wants to be defined by the past, but just some cool facts. So Shamokin High School actually has the first and longest active alumni association in the United States. It was established in 1883. And they still have every year an alumni event. And I don't know if anybody from the 1883 class is still coming or not, but I'm pretty sure not.
In spirit.
In spirit, yes, absolutely. But on the right is actually one of the coolest facts about Shamokin, and that is the St. Edward's Church. So Thomas Edison had a shop in Sunbury that he did a lot of his work out of when he was electrifying houses and running, three-phase through these small towns. So in 1882, Thomas Edison had a thing in Shamokin where he was going to light a few things, and he lit a prominent mansion, a town store on the square, and the third and final stop was at this St. Edward's Catholic Church, right directly in town in Shamokin Street, which actually became the first electrically lit church in the world, which I thought was just kind of a cool fact. And then I think the next picture, so part of the thing that Betsy did with the piece of the assessment grant and some of the other stuff that she did was she came up with a master plan, and everybody talks about their master plan. It's a great idea, and it's a wonderful idea, but Shamokin is run by a mayor who is and talking to somebody in the back, the very similar situation. He was the chief of police, and still is the chief of police, now also the mayor, and also served on the volunteer fire department. So he was just concerned about his town. He wanted to do some stuff with his town. So when we went to Shamokin the first time to talk to him about brownfields, he was like, "What do you mean? What's a brownfield?" And she's like, "Is that just like the ugly building?" And I'm like, "Well, it could be, but yeah." So I mean, you all know that story. So they needed some education as well. But the idea was, she didn't want to make a master plan that just sat on somebody's desk. That was like, "Hey, if we took this and did that with it, it would be really cool." She made a master plan with individual sites that had a purpose. And the idea was step-by-step instructions of what to do and how to do it. And from somebody who has no idea how to develop a brownfield, she learned everything she could. She went to every seminar. She came to all these brownfields conferences and learned everything she could, and then just helped with that master plan. She also had a consultant help her with that too. She didn't do it herself. But anyway, so this is just an example of some of the stuff that was in the pictures that were in that master plan. This is an old bank that's been obviously sitting vacant for a long time, and I'm sure there's asbestos. I'm sure there's all kinds of things that are going on in there. And to what the vision is, and actually that is in process now, and the vision is pretty close to what it's actually looking like. And that's right downtown, and to revitalize that district downtown. And lastly is I'm going to get these right because I can never remember the initials, JH and CK Eagle Silk Mill. It was the largest textile building under one roof in America. It was built in 1917. It was almost 380,000 square feet, which by comparison is roughly the size of the two average Walmarts put together. For 1917, it was a big building. It sat vacant for 40 years or so, and it was finally just torn down last year or the year before. So there's still work to be done there, but the assessment is actually being done through the assessment grant that Betsy had gotten for Shamokin. So that pretty much tells the story of Shamokin. So the idea is Pennsylvania has a ton of these old coal towns, and we have taken this tag grant idea that EPA has so graciously given us $20,000 for, and amped that up. And with the extra IIJ money that we've been receiving, we actually now, instead of doing one of these a year, we're doing 12 of these a year, above and beyond the one that we're doing for the tag grant. So by the end of next fiscal year, we should have 31 of these done. It has been so far with the 1.3 that they've gotten. Two of the other ones that have been completed have also gotten a community-wide assessment grant and another $1 million RLF. So it is making a difference. And thank you very much to the EPA for coming up with this idea. It was awesome. And we've done we think we've done a good job. But you're going to hear some cool stories about everybody else doing some really cool stuff too. So I'm done talking now. Oh, you want that?
All right, thanks, John. Well,
Oh, I have to get my letter.
would you like to choose a letter?
Yes, I
Buy
do.
a vow or solve the puzzle.
I want a letter. I want the letter F for, oh, I can't think of anything it stands for.
There are no F's, so I guess it stands for fail this time.
I'll take that.
All right. West Virginia, you're up next. Let's spin that wheel. $20,000. What would you do with $20,000, Erin?
Along the same lines as what John was saying, when this was first put forth through our 120-day grants to do a funding request, I too was like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what to do with it. I think probably all of us were in the same boat, or all the states were in the same boat as well. So as always, I leaned on the West Virginia Brownfields Assistance Centers, and so you could choose one smaller or rural community or town in your state. So I went, at the time, it was Patrick Kirby and George Carrico, and I said, help, because I always lean on them for help. And George said, you know what? There's a new mayor in Smithers, and I think we should do the first small technical assistance grant there, because she is new and she has a ton of ideas and is full of energy and enthusiasm, and this small town could really use $20,000. So that's what we decided to do. And so after receiving the funding and proceeding, we did a kickoff meeting, and we kind of, navigated through what to do, tossed out a lot of ideas, but we landed on one particular brownfield site. It's the old Oakland Elementary School right on the river in Smithers, and decided to do a master plan for that one brownfield site, because this was kind of the kicker, that really did it for us. It was already on the National Guard, the West Virginia National Guard slum and blight list to be demolished due to the 2016 flooding that occurred and had severely damaged that old school building. So that's where we focused, and like John said, you really need that project champion, that Brownfields champion, and she was it. She is a rock star. If anyone went to the National Brownfields Conference in August in Detroit, she rocked that entire conference and really just represented West Virginia so well, and I was so thankful that this was our first small technical assistance grant, because it was so successful. And that $20,000 led to over $2 million that she took the master plan information and cost estimates and budgeting and all of that, and applied for more funding and received it. And so everyone in the room was probably like, $20,000, that's nothing. It can lead to really big things, really, really big things. And for the entire state of West Virginia that is almost entirely small, rural towns, it's a game changer. It can really be a game changer. There's a video a little bit later on that we'll show, but it's a really exciting first start for this small community that had so much just bad stuff going on. WVU Tech had pulled out. Mayor Ann's first day on the job, within an hour, she said the Kroger corporate CEO had called her and said, hey, we're shutting it down today. The only grocery store in a, 50-mile radius, something like that. So she has had to fight constant battles like that ever since starting from day one as mayor. A year ago, August, Smithers experienced flash flooding. She got a phone call at 4 in the morning. She put her pants on and ran out to help, and that's exactly what these small towns need. She went and helped. There were literally babies being put into totes and being handed to volunteers outside windows, so that because of the flooding and the water rising up to these homes in Smithers. Just that, that's the love and the care, but that these small towns need. But you really need that, that superstar, if you will, to just put in a little bit of effort. And I think with these projects, we all have had to put in that little bit of extra something to get these done, so that it can accumulate, just go up from there. So.
Well, Pat Sajak would not approve of this, but I'm going to break out of my character real quick and just say I Googled Smithers, West Virginia for photos, and one of the first ones that popped up was Mayor Ann in her work year, and it said, flooding in Smithers. It was the coolest. So, okay. All right. Back in character. Okay. Erin, would you like to choose a letter?
Yes, I would.
Buy a vow or solve the puzzle?
I would like to choose a letter. T.
Are there any T's? There are 2 T's today, Erin.
Yay!
We'll spin that wheel again. A kayak launch.
What? Oh my goodness. So back to the master plan. Is it? There we go. So sorry. So once we put the master plan together, there were several concept drawings that we had for this particular school once it was demolished. So kind of a fresh start. What did Smithers need? So what we did to prep for the master plan was we did a visioning session in Smithers, and this was right when COVID was starting to happen. So we pushed it back a few months, but we met there in Smithers. We did kind of a community-wide social media calling out, for folks to attend. And of course, a lot of folks were still pretty hesitant to get together. But we spaced out in the gym, in a new gymnasium there in Smithers at the old Valley High School, and felt really, felt pretty good about it. We had a pretty good turnout for being just a few months into COVID. So we had really great feedback. DEP had contracted with the Thrasher Group, and they had a facilitator there showing different concept drawings and gathering even more ideas from the public. It was pretty well attended for for a small community during COVID. And one thing that kept coming up repeatedly was, hey, this is right on the river. There's not a kayak launch nearby for a few miles. I think this could really work. So, and something else that Mayor Ann was really wanting for this property is public restroom facilities, because there's not much actually public riverfront property for public access to use. And she lives right down, just a few houses down from this property, actually. And she literally opens her house up to boaters on the river who need to use the restroom. Literally. Every year, she says, boaters have nowhere to go. So she opens her house up. She's just an amazing person. So she was really bent on a public restroom facility, a kayak launch, splash pad for the kids, because there's not much to do for the kids in the community, a little circle drive for a food truck. I guess they've got like Chick-fil-A that comes every Wednesday or something like that in Smithers. Just amazing. So it really generated a lot of ideas, and from that it generated a lot of concept drawings and a really successful master plan. So that's really the ideas from the visioning session, and then was put forth into this master plan that she could then use to apply and receive $2 million.
All right. Well, Erin, would you like to choose a letter, buy, vow, or solve the puzzle?
Yeah, I would like to choose M.
All right. Are there any M's? 2 M's today. Yay. All right. Another spin here. trip to Smithers, West Virginia. Let's hear more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Environment Matters. I'm Mike Huff. An update now to a story we first brought you a few months ago about one city's plans to turn a crumbling former school building into a community asset with some help from the DEP's Brownfields program. Built around the turn of the last century, the former Oakland School in Smithers has seen better days. Last used for storage, the building has been abandoned for the past several years, open to the elements, and now deteriorated beyond repair and ready for the wrecking ball. But there's opportunity after the dust settles.
That leaves the city of Smithers with the only riverfront property publicly owned. And what we would like to do is find a way to convert that property into something very useful and full of fun for the area residents. So we want to hear what they want to see there.
And that was the purpose of this socially distanced visioning session held earlier this week at City Hall. Residents got to see renderings of some of the proposed ideas for the property, including public restrooms, picnic shelters, a basketball court, a splash pad, and a dock and kayak launch. The preliminary work is funded through a Brownfields grant administered by the DEP's Office of Environmental Remediation.
The Small Technical Assistance Grant is for either a small or disadvantaged community anywhere in the state. They can cover a wide range of activities, no assessment or cleanup, but more like feasibility studies. We can do public visioning sessions. We can do an inventory of brownfield sites within the smaller disadvantaged community. So just really, kind of generating a list or interest in a property that like this site where it's a brownfield property and we could redevelop it and put it to good use.
Brownfields are properties that, through prior or current use, may have environmental issues that hinder redevelopment. West Virginia's voluntary remediation program works with developers to address these problems and return the property to protective use. And there's a lot of good reasons for that.
The brownfield properties are already developed. So a lot of times the utilities are already there. It's usually by a river or road access or interstate access or rail access. This property is actually very close to all of those. So a lot of those development pieces are already in place. So it will actually save developers in the long run if they put their efforts into a brownfield property.
City leaders want to take advantage of Smithers' location, roughly halfway between Charleston and the New River Gorge, and proximity to nearby scenic attractions like Kanawha Falls to attract a few more of the 7,000 or so cars that pass by each day on Route 60 to stop and stay a while.
What we're in hopes of doing is creating a way to accomplish two things. First of all, give our residents a place to get on the river. If you live on the river here, access isn't a problem, but if you even live one block off, getting to the river for your kayak, your canoe, your picnics, it's a hard thing to do. So we want to make sure our area residents have a way to get to the river and enjoy the beauty that we have here. Second thing we want to do is to make sure that we create areas of interest for people on Route 60 on Midland Trail to get off that trail, to come into town where we have many good restaurants, we have things for people to do, but we don't have a kind of keynote place for people to come. So that's what we want to create, is a destination point for people passing by on Midland Trail.
Demolition of the old school building is set for later this year. The mayor says she will begin seeking grants to help fund the site's redevelopment. In Smithers, I'm Mike Huff for Environment Matters. Thanks for watching.
All right, well, Erin, would you like to choose a letter by vow or solve the puzzle?
I'd like to choose a letter C.
Are there any C's? No, sorry about that. All right, Roxanne from Ohio. Let's spin that wheel. Surprise! $20,000.
So just like everyone else kind of mentioned, we saw a free $20,000, and who doesn't love a free $20,000? So we were in search of a community for that, and we had recently worked with a small community right on the other side of the river in Bel Air, Ohio, who had a lot of challenges with brownfields. So, and we had a really interactive member in council who was working with us, so we chose Bel Air to work on. We met with them in city council and had a very difficult time actually getting anyone to respond. So unlike a lot of the other experiences here, we did not have a champion or somebody who was going to kind of move this project along. So we pivoted from planning on originally doing a brownfield inventory and decided what this community needed was more of a vision for what their community could be and some hope. So we decided to move forward with a vision plan, and while trying to find a stakeholder group or somebody to invest or be invested in Bel Air, we utilized some contacts from a coalition from across state lines called Belmar, and became in contact with the executive director of the CIC in Belmont County. And she helped us get together a stakeholder group of business owners in Bel Air. And they are the ones who have helped this project move and give it legs. So the $20,000 was a big catalyst for us.
Great. All right, Roxanne, would you like to choose a letter, by vow, or solve the puzzle?
I mean, I've been on these shows before. Isn't there usually like audience participation? Does anybody have a letter that they would like me to choose? D. Oh, excellent. D.
You gave me a heart attack, Roxanne. There is a D. Let's spin that wheel again.
Audience needs to work on their A game.
A car show? Oh, no, Bel Air.
Bel Air. So, Bel Air is an amazing place to visit. So, we did our vision plan with the help of the community, a consultant, our stakeholders, and the survey that I mentioned. And this project encompassed their downtown area. So they wanted to work on their main street. We pushed the boundaries in to include the downtown area and kind of focus on a very specific section. We did a brownfield inventory. It was included. We identified all of the very important areas that needed the most work, who owned them, what we could do with them. And then from that, we kind of, and the survey results, we decided that what they really wanted was to revitalize their community, but also create some connectivity. So with our partners and reaching out, we identified specific areas that connected the downtown corridor and one of Bel Air's major attractions, which is the Great Stone Viaduct. And if you've never seen it, I highly recommend going. This is a plan that was just created based on what the community wanted in the downtown area, in the viaduct area. If you can see the rails on both sides, just some ideas of what they were interested in. This is underneath the viaduct where there currently is driving and roads. So this would connect the viaduct green space to the downtown area. And then within the downtown main road, they have suggested putting in mini pitches for soccer or pickleball in some of their open spaces that need that. We also did some visions to show them what their downtown street could look like. They could have seating outside for restaurants and curb cuts and parking, and to make it more accessible for people to move through. And then most importantly, wanted to give the community something to use to move forward. So a plan on the projects that they wanted to work on and the resources available to work on those projects were a vital part. This is missing the star, but if you can see all the way to the right of the map where Wheeling is, just put a star right on the other side, and that is Bel Air. So Great Stone Viaduct is really what attracted us to this. We felt like it brought a lot of potential and interest to Bel Air for tourism. That green space that you just saw was where the rendering was from. This has been in quite a few movies, such as Unstoppable with Denzel Washington. They really love their heritage with that. And I believe they are interested in creating a train museum there. This is a picture of the part of the Great Stone Viaduct that closed down, and then a picture of what has recently been put up. There's now a walkway on top of that connects. This is underneath that was recently done, and they have signage there that kind of talks about the history of the viaduct and some really fun facts. So it's really coming together. This is all money and interest and investment that was already partially started by the Great Stone Viaduct Educational Society, but the project has been spearheaded also by people who are interested in investing money into the community. And when I say people, I mean the public entities surrounding it. So the coalition has gotten multiple US EPA grants, and they're working on cleaning up that property. We have succeeded in getting more grants, and we'll be putting in a few $100,000 just for cleanup for this area. And it's been a catalyst. It was just $20,000, but it gave the community something that is hard to provide, which is hope and connectivity, and they're talking to each other again. So it's been really exciting.
All right, thanks, Roxanne. Would you like to choose a letter, buy, vow, or solve the puzzle?
Audience? I don't want to buy anything. W, sounds great, thanks.
A W. There's the one W. All right. Spin again. A car show.
Oh, excellent. I love car shows. If you all are interested in car shows, Bel Air, I've heard, has one of the best. They're very well known for their car shows. They fill up their entire downtown area. It's one of the very big tourist attractions. And I heard recently, not to throw any shade, but they had their car show on the same weekend as the big city across the water. And 155 cars showed up to Bel Air, where only about 50 showed up at the big city across the water. So if you want to go to a car show, I recommend Bel Air.
Ouch.
Don't come at me.
All right. Roxanne, would you like to choose a letter, buy, vow, or solve the puzzle?
Audience? I'm not allowed to choose that. H?
Are there any H's?
Excellent job, guys.
No. All right, moving on. Tennessee. Let's spin that wheel. And it's $20,000.
Wow, unbelievable. As my colleagues from other states mentioned, we all received the $20,000 technical assistance grant through EPA on behalf of small communities in our states. So this is where it applies to y'all. If you are a small community or know a small community that needs something like this, this could be an opportunity for you. What we did with ours was an economic impact analysis study between two small communities in Appalachian, Tennessee, looking at what would it mean for them if an old rail bed was transformed into a trail. We turned the if into actual numbers and data, looking at an economic impact analysis. What if this old rail bed that was just sitting there was transformed into a trail?
All right. Let's spin. Oh, Paula, would you like to choose a letter, buy, vow, or solve the puzzle?
I'm going to go with the controversial why.
Why? Are there any whys? One why. All right. Well, let's do another spin here. A jackpot plus a surprise.
I don't even know. I can't handle that. But seriously, on these projects, they take a lot. We were working with the Mountain Goat Trail Alliance. The Mountain Goat has arrived because that was named for the railway. The railway was called the Mountain Goat Railway because at the time it was built in the 1800s, it was the steepest rail in the world. So tough terrain, you know, in Appalachia. The surprise this year was in our governor's budget, he allocated $9.2 million to finish the trail. We've spent over 10 years working on this, piecemealing teeny tiny grants and funding and crowdsourcing funds to work on this, and had about 10 miles done out of 40. And this terrain is tough to work on, and it's not cheap either. It's very expensive to build trail in mountainous terrain. And so with this surprise of the 9.2 allocation in the governor's budget this year, we have a path to completion.
Great. Paula, would you like to choose a letter, by vow, or solve the puzzle?
I think I'd like to choose an L.
L. Are there any L's? One L. Two L's. Three L's. Wow. Let's spin that wheel again, Paula. Yeah. Wonder what will pop up for you this time. A trip to the Mountain Goat Trail.
Fantastic.
Let's
watch
hear
the
the video.
My name is Jonathan Grimes. I live in Monteagle, Tennessee. I ran for miles. I exercised all the time. It was part of me. Losing that ability destroyed me mentally. The Mountain Goat Trail lets me be more worry-free. I don't have to constantly look in my mirror or look ahead all the time and dodge cars or hope they're dodging me. Getting to leave my wheelchair, that's a very freeing thing. It helps you deal with the injury. It helps you keep your sanity. Usually it's a 30-mile ride, and I'm out there for 2 or 3 hours. You don't have to walk the entire length of the trail to stay active and keep yourself in a better lifestyle. And you don't have to do it in a hurry. You don't even have to ride a bike in a hurry. You don't have to do it over great distance. Just get out and do it.
Well, I have some great vacation spots now. All right, Paula, would you like to choose a letter, by vow, or solve the puzzle?
I think I'd like to solve it.
All right.
Always seems impossible until it's done. So if anybody else is working on a project that you are always working on, I felt like I was always going to be working on this project. It can be done. So please take that away with some hope today.
All right, well, thank you all for joining us this morning. We wanted to start the conference off in an inspiring way for you. All of these projects started with $20,000, which doesn't seem much, but just a little bit of starter money, a lot of work can lead to huge successes and rewards. We want you to remember that today, tomorrow, and when you leave. And don't forget, if you can, be the champion of your community, because that's what really creates results. If you have any questions, feel free to come up to anyone on our panel and ask for help, assistance, or just more about their project. And I highly encourage you throughout the next 2 days to sit next to someone you don't know, spark some conversation, and gain some new colleagues in your Rolodex, if you still have one of those. But I hope you have a great week, and thank you for being here.